From South Carolina Public Radio, this is the South Carolina Lede. I'm your host, Gavin Jackson, and this episode was recorded on October 13th, 2025, from South Carolina Public Radio studios here in Columbia. On this episode of The Lede, we wrap up our Washington Week coverage with interviews with PBS News Hour's congressional correspondent Lisa Desjardins and the Wall Street Journal's Josh Dawsey. Some good insight there on Congress and the Trump administration from two reporters closest to the action. And they got some South Carolina ties, y'all. We also have new campaign trail fundraising numbers and polling data. Some numbers to make you feel good about numbers. The Lede loves hearing from you. That's why we have a voicemail box set at 803-563-7169. It's getting spooky. What are you going to wear for Halloween? I'm not very good this year about picking out costumes, but maybe you have a good idea for me that I cannot guarantee that I will wear due to any number of reasons.
Interesting.
803-563-7169. Let's get into our fall feels, y'all. All right, let's look at what's on tap this week in the State House. On Tuesday, the House Tort Reform Ad Hoc Committee meets to hear testimony on tort reform and medical malpractice bills S-244 and H-4544. And also on Tuesday afternoon is a House Ethics Committee meeting, executive session, The governor will participate in the State Fiscal Accountability Authority, or SFA, meeting to take up items approved by the Joint Bond Review Committee, JBRC. And in Congress, the shutdown continues.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's right. The federal government shutdown continues into day 13 as of our taping, and no one knows when it's going to end.
Awesome.
It's just going to keep going. Well, we had planned to speak with members of our House delegation last week in Washington. They weren't in town and haven't been in town since sending the continuing resolution to the Senate on September 19th. But at the Lede, we pivot. You know, we brought you that exclusive sit-down interview with Senator Graham, which then Kristen Welker did on the Meet the Press. We did that on Tuesday, so whatever. And today I'm bringing you some of the other interviews we did last week, including with PBS royalty, Lisa Desjardins. I don't know what that translates into. That's not her maiden name. But she is the PBS News Hour's congressional correspondent, and she broke down the shutdown for us this way and how it was different from previous shutdowns.
This is an unusual shutdown for a few reasons. Folks think we have shutdowns all the time. I think that's because we've had a lot of threats of shutdowns, but it is actually rare to have a shutdown that is as far-reaching. The last time we had a major shutdown, 2018, 2019, veterans staff and also the military staff were not part of that shutdown. They were funded. This time now, we have active duty troops, civilian people who work at the Department of Defense, they're not being paid. And so that really extends the scope of this much farther. It's also strange, I don't know if you felt this, because lawmakers, there is no sense of urgency.
I have felt indifference.
Yeah, there is no sense of urgency. It's almost as if the shutdown is not happening. Now, part of that is because it's quiet. There are fewer people up here. The House is not in session. Also highly unusual. Not even here in town to deal with it.
And now we had interviews lined up, Lisa, and then they disappeared.
Well, that's why it's not on you.
Mm-hmm.
That is a tactic that House Republicans are using. They're saying, we passed our funding bill, and we're not coming back into town until the Senate passes theirs. But it is highly unusual for them to not be here and at least not pass bills funding the military, funding these groups. But this is something Speaker Johnson has decided to do. It's an important piece of strategy, and we don't know yet if it's going to work out.
So we've been seeing that play out. You've been covering these daily press conferences.
Yeah.
That's what we see in front of the cameras. Behind the scenes, do you think that there are actual negotiations going on, or is it really just as deadlocked as we think it is?
I think it is very deadlocked. I think there was a moment last week where one group of senators was on the Senate floor actually talking to one another, understanding each other's points of view. And for a few hours, honestly, that looked like it was going to become real conversation, at least among senators, but now it's not. And I think it's because the Republican senator involved, Mike Rounds of South Dakota, he's seen as someone that people trust, but he went on the air with us, as some of your viewers might have seen, the next day saying, no, there won't be real negotiations until government is back open. And you might get the riddle here. The Republicans are saying, we won't talk to you about health care until government is open. I just came from sitting with Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader. He said, we won't reopen government until there are negotiations. So those two things don't work.
So Lisa, when it comes down to that, that's the crux of the shutdown right here. Does that have to be done through this process? Do Democrats have any other option to get those subsidies expanded, made permanent, or is this their only shot essentially?
This is probably their only shot. And it's because they don't control any branch of government. They don't control the White House, not the House, not the Senate. This is really the only little bit of leverage that they have at this point. And it will more than likely, any permanent either extension or repeal of these subsidies will come down to future elections.
Mm-hmm. So really, if they don't do this now, I mean, you hear people talk about, oh, we could promise to discuss this later, or not use the budget shutdown as, a policy negotiating tactic, but when you have nothing left to go on, what else do you do besides this right here?
It's a little, that opens up a little bit more complicated. There could be a situation where they feel that there is an opening enough to pass maybe a couple weeks funding while they sit down and talk with Republicans to see if they can get a bill going.
But there's not even talk about that, right?
There's not even talk of that,
So
no.
ideally that's what it would be, but there's still just no talk about that.
No, nothing.
And then were you fascinated by Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene's statement about saying, hey, wait a minute, what are we doing here? I'm not a slave to President Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Does that signal something bigger to you, or is that something that rumbles in the background but no one says publicly except for people like her, or what?
She's throwing in a lot of spice into the mix that wasn't expected, and that's true. One is that she's calling out Republicans, saying that she is concerned about the healthcare subsidies, which is something Republicans have been trying to keep everyone from saying because they want the focus to be on Democrats on the shutdown. So she's really changed the conversation a little bit from that point of view. But at the same time, she's also raising the idea that Republicans should steamroll Democrats, throw out the filibuster, forget about requiring 60 votes, and go through a process called, going nuclear, where they essentially break the Senate rules to change the Senate rules and fund government with just 50 votes. Now, that sounds all like Parcheesi, some crazy, what am I talking, right? What does that mean? Like from some old
dangerous to
it's
do that.
It's very dangerous. That would, I'm not exaggerating, it would fundamentally change the character of American government. But it has been in the conversation now from both parties for many years.
But still the vibe, I feel like, again, going back to just how sedate everything kind of seems
I know, look at us.
complacent. It doesn't seem like we're going to go nuclear at this point.
They're sort of mutually complicit right now with each other. They're sort of supporting each other, digging in. And that's why we're here. There needs to be more pressure for either side to change what they're doing.
So wrapping up, Lisa, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but what do you think is going to be the thing that breaks this, essentially? I mean, we're going to see more air traffic controllers walk off the job, TSA go off the job, people missing their paychecks on Friday, really just clamoring for Congress to do something. Is that what's going to take to see something move? You hit all the good points. I think people will watch, of course, any air delays, but I think it's the paychecks that will matter, especially when the troops miss a big paycheck. Some people will miss a partial paycheck this week, but it's as those bigger paychecks are missed starting a week from this Friday. And something else to watch for is funding. If there's funding problems with like women, infant and children, those kinds of programs. But the problem with all that, of course, is that probably is still another week and a half, maybe more away that pressure really builds up. I just don't know when this is again. I don't see it. I don't see enough pressure mounting soon. But the news cycle, as we know, is very unpredictable. Yeah. Lisa Desjardins, thank you.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Shutdown breakdown. Thank you, Lisa Desjardins. We grabbed Lisa. It was really wild. We just texted her. We set things up. We met her outside the Capitol. It was fantastic, though. It was about to rain, and I was getting flashbacks to our lively taping. I was like, do we go inside? We don't have credentials to get inside. How do we do this? But we did it outside. And then she got us day passes around the Capitol. So super helpful. We love our PBS family. Thank you. Now, part of me was worried that a lot of this would be out of date, but nothing has really changed since we spoke to those guys. So it kind of worked out perfectly. And those South Carolina ties that I mentioned at the top? Yes. Well, for those that didn't know, Lisa did some time here in SC at news outlets in the late 90s and early 2000s, including Columbia's WIS before jumping up to DC. And she's not the only one with those ties. Josh Dawsey, the pride of Aner, is also a USC alumni and a Pulitzer Prize winner, and he's a Wall Street Journal investigative reporter on the Trump beat. And he gave us some time to talk about covering the Trump administration. Take a listen.
So Josh, reporter at the Wall Street Journal, you cover the Trump beat. You've been on the Trump train, covering that for years at the Washington Post, now at the Wall Street Journal. Tell us what that's like day in, day out. What do you do? What's the coverage like?
Well, I guess I've been doing that for almost 10 years now, since 2016.
Yeah.
Time is kind of a flat circle. But, this administration is much different than the first one. The first, I covered Trump in the first term, which was sort of driven by a lot of internal fighting. There were 2 impeachments. There was obviously the drama of him, trying to overturn the election. There were lots of big fights in first term, and it was pretty messy. This term, I also covered him in the 4 years where he was out of office and running to get back in office, and the criminal cases and his success ended up being a successful campaign. And this term, I would say he is a much more, I don't want to use the word disciplined, but a much more determined that he knows what he wants to do at a lot of these agencies. He has very strong ideas and there's no really dissuading him. And I think he has a much clearer idea of how his idea of robust executive power works. And we're seeing, I think, in some ways, a more consequential presidency, on immigration, on his fights with universities, with law firms, really his relationship with Congress, what he's doing over the Department of Justice, what he's doing over the Defense Department. I mean, it's a wholesale change of the government. If you like him, you probably think, wonderful, I wish he would do more. But if you don't like him, I think it's a much more impactful presidency, maybe this time than the first time.
And can you apply that to what we're seeing right now with the shutdown and how this shutdown is maybe similar or different to some of the previous ones, especially during his administration? Is this actually going to achieve anything, you think, or should he be more involved in it than he has been?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, one of the differences in almost every shutdown fight I've ever seen in Washington, there were frenzied discussions until the last minute of, can we avoid this? Can we avoid this? This time, both sides sort of said the Democrats wanted a fight over health care, and Trump, I think, was willing to shut down the government too. What's interesting here is Trump saying he wants to negotiate on health care, right? Because he's going to be in the midterms next year. Presidents typically who are in power do not do well in the midterms, right? And so you face difficult odds already. And if healthcare premiums go up, as Democrats say they will, and a lot of outside experts say they will, that could be even more headwinds against the president. And I think that's why you keep hearing him say, I want to talk about healthcare, I want to negotiate healthcare, because he doesn't want to be playing for that.
What's it like when we see with the federalization of these troops and like the National Guard troops going to D.C., they're in all these other big cities, there's all these fights going on. Do you feel like there's some people that are concerned that this is a precursor to something else in the future? Do you think those are valid concerns when it's talking about the enemy from within? We're talking about, possibly martial law at some not too distant future. I mean, are those unfounded?
It's a good question. I mean, I don't know the answer to it. I do know that Trump is very determined to do more and more cities. And so you see him doing Chicago now. They're looking at other cities across the country. They want to send these folks. And it's a really interesting dichotomy because they're sending red state National Guard troops into blue states. So like the Texas guys, for example, are today showing up in Illinois. That's a really something we've never really done in this country, like sent the National Guard of one state to patrol another state because the president can't get that governor to put his own National Guard or her own National Guard up. And so it's going to lead to some really interesting showdowns on that front. I mean, Washington, I think it was easier for the president to do, as you see walking around here, their National Guard everywhere. They're at the end of a subway, they're in the streets, they're outside restaurants, they're everywhere. Union Station, the train station. But it was easier because he actually has jurisdiction over Washington. To send them to all of these other cities is a much more challenging proposition.
And then how do you think this shutdown ends? I mean, is that going to be a loss for him if there's some sort of caving, or if I don't even know how to anticipate how this could possibly end, but is there a way maybe to shift this so there is some sort of stopgap and there is actually a discussion on what to do with healthcare?
Well, the pressure heats up for them to find a deal right in a couple of weeks when people's paychecks don't come for the first time. And a lot of people across the country are really mad and things are shut down and the military's not, and this person's not getting paid and that person's not getting paid, and people start feeling the real world impacts of this. And then I think does the White House, want to give the Democrats some agreement on health care to make this end? And if not, how long are the Democrats willing to keep this shut down? My suspicion is the first week, the sort of deleterious things that really make pain for people are not being quite felt yet. There are some of them, of course, but as it goes on longer, everyone's incentive structure changes a little bit more to make it end.
And when we look, and I know that we're trying to be a little bit more domestically focused, South Carolina focused too, but when you look at what's going on in Israel and Gaza and this potential peace deal, if that actually does stick, if it does go through, how big of a deal will that be for him and his legacy, in your opinion?
I think huge. I mean, I think if he actually gets Israel and Hamas to sign up on some sort of deal, gets the hostages out, stops sort of the Israeli fire, stops the Hamas terrorist attacks, stops at both sides. Whether you hate or like Trump, it's really a big deal, right? question is it sustainable? I mean, in the past, Trump has told Netanyahu to stop bombing. Netanyahu has kept bombing. He's not, Hamas obviously did the horrific attack on October 7th, which was 2 years ago this week, right? And really hasn't stopped either. So can you make that sustainable? I don't know the answer to that, but he has gotten further than some of his critics would say he could on that front.
And Josh, wrapping up, you're originally from South Carolina. You have the ties to the state. Can you kind of give us maybe a look in terms of when we look at Trump, we look at our federal delegation and the closeness that we have with him and our governor to Trump, how important that is? I mean, are we better off than some other states?
My wallet is still South Carolina. You see, I keep my South Carolina wallet here 15 years later. And my 843 number. Is South Carolina better off than
that
other
connection
states?
with that federal connection with our delegation and our closest to Trump? We look at Lindsey Graham; he's basically a Trump whisperer in some ways.
Lindsey has a hot and cold relationship with Trump. I think Trump likes Graham, but they've had their falling outs too. I don't know that Trump has as close a relationship with Tim Scott, and in the House delegation, I'm not sure that Trump is particularly close to any of the members. I don't know that he doesn't dislike. I'm not saying that. I just don't know that he's particularly close. Lindsey certainly with Trump whisperer. It will be really interesting to see next year in South Carolina if Graham has a challenger and he has any issues. How will Trump come down? Will Trump come in a primary? Will Trump try to knock down challenges for him? Because in the past, Trump, you've been at these events where like Trump has Lindsey on the stage in South Carolina and the crowd boos. And Trump is like, well, we love Lindsey, come on. Like Lindsey helps me with the Democrats. And the crowd boos again. And Trump's like, Lindsey, why are they booing you, right? And so you could see some really interesting dynamics.
And then also in the governor's race, too. There's so many people vying for that endorsement, which is, I guess, the biggest thing to get from Trump these days. I mean, you need that endorsement if you want to have any chance in surviving some of these races, whether it's South Carolina or other red states.
So in a South Carolina Republican primary, if Trump endorsed against you, it would be sort of difficult to win, right? If you endorsed another candidate. I mean, I don't think that's the only factor, but you need that, right? Now, if he endorsed a candidate and the other candidate, he said, I like them too, I don't know, maybe you could have a chance. But if he made a strong preference one over the other, it's hard to imagine it not mattering in South Carolina, right?
A lot to watch for in the midterms.
And Lindsey has been golfing with Trump a lot recently. Senator Haas. I've seen several pictures and, he's always working it.
Yeah. All right, Josh Dawsey, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So thanks to our national political journalists for their time. We appreciate it, and hopefully we'll catch up with them soon. It's good to have friends up in the big city when you're all alone in the big city. But I'm going to get back to doing some talking, because back here, the American Civil Liberties Union of South Carolina filed a suit last week on behalf of public school librarians and students, asking a federal court to block enforcement of the state's book banning regulation in a classroom censorship memo issued by the state superintendent of education, Ellen Weaver. The lawsuit alleges that the regulation and the censorship memo, which was issued in March by Weaver to create clarity and consistency in how the agency implements federal and state law, is haphazardly applied from district to district and infringes on First Amendment and 14th Amendment rights. We'll be following that case going through federal courts along with some others. But let's jump on the campaign trail really quick, with a focus on the governor's race. That's right, we're still looking at the fundraising for the third quarter, including Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette, who raised $1.1 million and also secured a $300,000 personal loan, bringing her fundraising total for the third quarter to just over $1.4 million, but she spent some $870,000 of it. Quite a burn rate there, but when you pull out and look at what she spent that money on, 76% of that, roughly, went to advertising. We've seen the commercials, and that was something that has helped Evette with her name recognition in a field with some well-known people, such as Attorney General Alan Wilson and especially 1st District Congresswoman Nancy Mace. Speaking of Wilson, he raised nearly $1.3 million, with $260,000 coming in transfers from his Attorney General campaign account. He actually had to call those donors and ask them to move that money, so not exactly a personal loan, but some money that's already been out there. And Wilson hasn't loaned himself any money, and he has roughly $1 million on hand, with the bulk of early expenditures going to consulting and communications costs. So we were saying that money from Evette has been spent on advertising, and it appears to have been helping, because the Trafalgar Group poll found that Evette had support outside of the margin of error at 20%, to Mace at 16%, Wilson at 12%, and 5th District Congressman Ralph Norman polling at 9%, whereas Spartanburg Senator Josh Kimbrell was at 1%. Meanwhile, 41% of the 1,094 likely Republican primary voters surveyed earlier this month remained undecided. Anyone's race, folks, and the margin of error was plus or minus 3%. Again, we saw Evatt at 20%, which was out of that margin with Mace at 16%. That poll did find that Wilson had the highest favorability rating, though, followed by Mace, who also had the highest unfavorability rating at 48% to her favorable at 40%, putting her underwater. However, she has the highest name ID among the candidates. Again, see how it shakes out. But not all polls are the same. In fact, a poll by Quantus Insights, in partnership with Trending Politics News, conducted a statewide survey of South Carolina Republican voters ahead of the primary season. And among GOP voters, no single figure has yet consolidated the race for governor like we were talking about in that previous poll. It's all split up here. And this breakdown was pretty similar, with Evatt at 17%, Wilson at 16%, tied essentially with Mace at 16%, Norman at 11%, and Kimbrell 5%. So more than a third of voters remain undecided at 35%, underscoring just how unsettled the field remains. But when you factor in leaners, those currently undecided but expressing a soft preference, when those are included, Wilson edges slightly ahead. Even so, the race remains defined by indecision, not consolidation. Nearly half of those voters without a firm choice remain open to persuasion. That's when campaigning and messaging and advertising and campaigning and advertising and messaging really comes into play, folks. Yeah. Now, the poll's authors also deduce some wisdom from those numbers. In South Carolina's 2025 Republican primaries, voters are less in revolt than in reflection. They are not seeking a new direction so much as a steady hand to preserve the one they already trust. In a field crowded with ambition, it will be those who can project executive credibility and quiet command, rather than volume or velocity, who find the most receptive audience. But let's also look at another facet of the campaign trail, the 1st Congressional District. In the 1st Congressional District down there in the Low Country, former state rep Mark Smith has raised more than $325,000 in the first 8 weeks of his campaign as he's seeking to win the Republican nomination for the seat currently being vacated by Mace. Sam McCowan, another Republican in the race, raised $149,000 and loaned himself $865,100. Alex Pelbeth, another of the 5 Republicans in the open primary, has not announced his fundraising totals, and there are 2 Democrats in the race as well. SCO1, baby. Welcome to the Windown Section, a little break from the news. We're glad you're here, along with A.T. Scherer, lead podcast producer. Hello, sir.
Hello, everyone. Well, we got no calls, Gavin. I'm gonna be a straight shooter, okay? First off,
shoot straight with me.
we got no calls.
Dang.
Okay, I'm gonna be very honest, very open
You don't have
about
to be that honest.
This weekend, it capped off the perfectly bad week for Ole AT. Eagles lose, Phillies lose, Gamecocks put on like an absolute snoozer. Okay, this is what I need my teams to do. Stop playing late games.
Steve says, stop playing late games.
I'm not even asking for wins, okay? Just lose during the day so I don't have to stay up till midnight to watch you guys.
Also,
please.
you're going to tell me to stay in the state when any of your sports teams
Correct.
are
Gavin, no
playing.
more trips to Riyadh, okay?
Oh my God, the Riyadh Comedy Festival was actually kind of good, guys. This is just a little soft diplomacy.
You think
here.
he was in D.C.? He wasn't. He was doing that all remote.
I was.
You were
killing
doing
it.
insane
I
hours
was
in Riyadh, pulling crazy hours. Yeah,
But they were. I
The
left
comedy's
him.
worth it.
I left him laughing.
Yeah, comedy's worth it.
Yeah, no, I have nothing to do with the kingdom. I'm sure it's great for the people that love
Yeah,
that
that's
stuff.
just a bit,
great.
folks. It's just
That's
a
a
bit.
bit.
That's
Don't
what you get when you
call
don't
us.
call. Yeah, that's what you get when you don't. But Gavin, you're wasting away. Your body's failing.
Well, after last week in D.C., I did spend the most of, if not the entire day of Saturday, in my bed.
Yeah, of course.
Recharging as one does, as I can, this mortal coil that I
Charge
occupy.
your crystals. I get it.
And I'm fortunate because I can do that, but I was doing some solid walking. I was glad to get my steps in the nation's capital, like 12,000 a day. And now my legs are like, we need more apparently because they're just like tingling. And it feels like I'm in, is this what restless leg syndrome feels like?
You give a mouse a cookie, brother.
I'm like, boy, I haven't done anything too odd, but maybe I just need to get out there and get back on the trails.
So, Gavin, I do say I've lived with like a restless leg, sort of dull ache in my legs for, I'd say, if I'm 38 years.
Okay. Sounds like an enjoyable existence.
Yeah, to the extent of my memory going back. And what I do is I punch myself in the leg, and that tends to help it a little bit.
I've always been in pain.
Yeah, I don't know if I can even register it as pain anymore, but yeah, it's been there. Just a dull ache. Constantly.
It's just suffering in silence. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Powerful.
So yeah, punch yourself in the leg.
I mean, it seems like it is helping.
It does. It diffuses the
It's
pain.
the driving, It's the driving.
You can hear the punches, folks. So,
It's
Gavin,
good to laugh.
your
It's been
legs,
so long.
your legs are starved for moving.
Yeah,
Do you have any plans to remediate this pain?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go hiking in one of our wonderful trails. It's the time of year to get out there and reconnect with nature. And I will say I've talked about my hiking, and yes, it continues on, folks.
And
it wasn't
yes,
just
he
a thing
does
just because I
have
was
an
going
Outback.
to Washington. It's because I still drive an Outback.
Well, you hiked around a city. You can urban hike. It's called
I
walking.
was, and it's just, but I like to, the terrain.
Well, it's the
terroir.
altitude. I love talking terroir. Yeah, terroir is great.
But no, there's so many good state parks. We got great state trails, and now it's getting nicer outside. The only trade-off is, of course, the sun sets earlier, so then
It's
I can't
disgusting.
go out.
The worst part is
you
to
guys
think
asked for this, and now
it's
you're
like
getting it.
6 o'clock and it's full dark, and then you think,
just-
actually, it's 5 o'clock, folks.
Ugh.
This is what you get, Meg Kennard. 5 o'clock.
Yeah,
okay?
she gets recognized on planes, but she causes this change.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not right.
disgusting how it works.
God, I'm glad they did away with this in reality.
But yeah, I know.
So, Gavin, this is what I think you need to do, okay?
This is like a normal podcast. Do you guys listen to podcasts like
Much-
this? How do they make it work?
Since you're already hiking, much like a truffle pig, I think you need to hone in on some sort of
This truffle
high
pig-
dollar truffle,
Well, yeah.
mushrooms, and get out there.
Sure, we'll do that. And also, panning for gold is back because the spot price for gold. If you haven't
Oh, yeah.
checked, guys.
I would love for you to get into that.
Do you even know what the spot price
Is
for
it
gold
called
is right now?
sloughing or something like that?
Is it actually called sloughing?
Yeah,
No, that's
SLOUGH.
That's actually for the face when you're
Oh,
doing
no, when you look at the arc.
silver's-
Yeah, when you
silver's
don't
getting
close
up
your
there,
eyes
too.
when the arc's open.
that. Oh yeah, you definitely can't
You're
keep your
gonna
eyes
get
open.
sloughed.
Yeah, gold's looking pretty good, gang. So we're gonna go out there. We're gonna pan for gold.
Yeah.
And this truffle pig.
Hey, the money is in the woods, folks. Okay, it's underground. It's in the rivers and byways. Okay,
I get banned from like state parks. And I'm trying to go for my ultimate outsider.
doctors hate this guy.
What? I just need to get on the state grounds. I have like a legal mining operation.
You're one of those people who compulsively digs holes in the backyard and has elaborate tunnel systems under their property. Have you seen that? They're addicted to tunnels. It's amazing.
You could do this. You have some great terrain.
Oh,
You get some great elevation.
my terroir. Yeah, my terroir. I can go straight to the side.
Well, just, if you're looking for something for Christmas, a metal detector would go a long way.
A metal detector, a good spade? Come on.
Guys.
A
it's
slough?
never too
I don't
early.
know. A sloughing tray? I don't know what it's called.
Oh my God! Please free us from these bounds. Give us a call.
Yeah.
I cannot become a normal podcast. AT is going to be talking about sports again before you know it. Please help us.
Decidedly do not want to talk about it.
I'm about to go off the grid and pan for gold.
I love that for you. Yeah.
It's always been in my cards. let's
Gavin
be
off the
real.
grid.
You have to come find me to record
Yeah.
the pod.
Yeah.
Where is he this week? I don't know. I lost cell phone service an hour ago.
Yeah. Those are going to
You gotta
sound
chip
good,
me.
though.
You gotta
know what
chip me.
sounds good?
He's chipped.
Tunnels.
And
Okay.
you're like, don't you want to talk about the news? I'm like, oh yeah.
You think that you folks
we're in
think
tunnels, we're in the
the
gold
Durango
tunnels.
sounds good? Just wait till we have an underground podcast. Anyway, Gavin, please.
Oh, underground's the future. We all know that.
Oh God!
We've already said too
well,
much.
The
But our
surface,
patrons
the
know.
surface is going to be used. Okay, so we got to go under.
Our Patreon listeners know exactly.
Go ahead,
And you
Gavin.
get that 15% off Blue Apron by using #MeUndies.
Eat
Yes.
whatever they send you in the box. Don't ask any questions. Okay.
The box wouldn't lie. But please call us. 803-563-7169. We'd love hearing from you guys. If you don't want to call, you can also text us. You can also run into us in public. Do not look at Mr. Jackson in the eyes if you encounter him. Also,
Do not feed him.
You can also stay up to date with the latest news at SCETV.org and SouthCarolinaPublicRadio.org. And don't forget to support your local newspapers. The South Carolina Lede is a production of South Carolina Public Radio. Our producer is A.T. Shire. Amy Crouch is our supervising producer. Sean Birch is our executive producer. This podcast is produced with support from PureX and is made possible in part by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, as well as listener contributions to the ETV Endowment of South Carolina. For the South Carolina Lead, I'm Gavin Jackson. Be well, South Carolina.
It's called sluicing.
Sluicing.
There we go. I got it in the pod. I can give you some pointers. There's really one thing
I
that
don't
works
want
for me.
any ointment.
It's no ointment.